Right then guys, so 5 tips to get you hitting driver better. Now, what you'll notice as we run through this video is actually some of the tips actually directly influence something else further down. So you might not actually need to work on all 5, but if you've got these as a little checklist, if driver's not going as well as you'd like, run through this checklist and I guarantee you will start hitting driver better than you were before. It could just be one of these simple tips that's changed, could be all 5. But I'm going to run through them from setup all the way up to how you're striking the ball. And if you run through this video, like I said, I guarantee you'll hit better drives than ever before. Right then guys, so like I said, I don't think I ever see a golfer who doesn't want to hit driver further, straighter. Doesn't guarantee good scores, but it's a great feeling, isn't it, when you can hit driver solidly, a good distance, and be in play, even if not exactly on the fairway. So the 5 key tips that you need to do to be maximising driver, we're going to start with tip number 1, which is setup. Now, very much when you look at golfers when they set up with irons, we're talking about maybe shoulder width stance, balls very in the middle, and kind of the spine is pretty straight up. Now, that's great when the golf ball's on the floor and the way we're looking to deliver the club then, but we need to be very, very different with driver. So what we're going to talk about is a much wider stance. So we're going to get those feet wider than shoulder width. It's going to give us a nice solid base to try and generate some speed while maintaining some kind of balance. We're going to move the ball forward in our stance, so much more opposite my left armpit. That's going to encourage to get the ball working a little bit more up through impact. And we're also just going to create a little bit more spine tilt away from the target. And we're going to do that. Ideally, there'll be an element of that because the left hand's higher than the right hand. But we're just going to bump that trail hip slightly towards the target. And you can see then how my spine tilts away from target. Now, just from that first little change, let's hit a shot and see how that goes. So not bad. It's down there. And we can see some of the numbers there. I've generated 104 mile an hour club speed, 150 ball speed. I actually hit up there without trying, but that's something we're going to move into in one of the other tips. But 233 carry, 252 total. So that moves me nicely into tip 2. Now, tip 2 is about giving you the ability to try and generate some more speed. And the best way of doing that is to make a nice big turn in the backswing. Now, a lot of golfers talk a lot about turning the shoulders, but you can only turn the shoulders as far as your body will allow you once you've moved your hips. So if we're going to try and make a bigger turn, we're going to let that trail hip turn behind us more, let that leg straighten a little bit, and get a much bigger shoulder turn than normal. Now it might feel that the club gets past parallel. I don't mind with that, because that's going to help us potentially generate some more speed, even before we try and generate more speed in the downswing. So second tip is let's make a nice full turn. So we're going to go through that little setup that we've done and try and make a nice big turn on this one and see how that goes. Again, felt solid. We look at the numbers there, got a little bit more club head speed, a bit more ball speed. Carries jumped up to 254 and total at 285. So even after 2 tips, we're starting to hit driver better than before. So third tip is we want to generate speed in the downswing. Now we've seen that nice big turn has already generated a little bit more speed because the club's got longer to travel. Now, big issue I have with a lot of golfers is I actually think they don't try and swing driver quickly because they're worried about control. So you get golfers stand up and try and make a very slow, controlled swing. They actually hit the ball very well, but they don't actually generate the speed they could with this. So as good as everything else can be, they're very limited with how far they can hit the ball. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to make that nice big turn, and then from here, I want to really feel that I drive with my legs down into the ground and then up, really almost feeling like I'm throwing the club down the range. So if I was throwing, see how my legs would work? That's very much what I want, and I just physically want to try and feel like I'm going to swing the club as quick as I can. Now it feels fast. So we're going to get that set up, tip 1. Tip 2, we're going to make that nice big turn. Tip 3, we're just physically going to try and swing the club as quickly as possible. Felt quick. So 106 mile an hour club head speed. Ball speed at 157. Carry at 264. And total at 292. Right then guys, so after 3 tips, we're really building some distance and still keeping some decent accuracy on here. So tip 4 is about how we deliver the club to be as optimum as possible. Now with launch monitors nowadays, we're very fortunate that we get some great feedback on what helps us maximise distance with driver. And one of the key elements that most of the long drivers in the world do is the club is actually travelling up through impact. So the lowest point of our swing is behind the golf ball, and the club is travelling up, which helps us launch the ball a little bit higher with a little bit less speed, with a little less backspin. Now a lot of golfers, because they're so used to hitting off the floor, they actually deliver the driver down through impact and can actually hit some very good shots, but it does cost them a little bit of distance. Now you'll probably notice that it's something I do quite naturally anyway, but I'm really going to try and exaggerate it on this one. And it's a really easy feeling to have, and we've already kind of built into our setup to potentially get you doing this. But if you're not, it's just something you can work on a little bit more as tip number 4. So what we're going to do is set up as normal. We're going to make that nice big swing, and even though we're going to try and swing quickly, at impact, even though we're driving towards the target, we want to feel that by impact that spine is still tilting away, so that our sternum is still well behind the golf ball. What you'll generally see with a lot of golfers is they might turn back, but then as they shift, everything moves in front and the club travels down. It's a brilliant feeling that when the ball's on the floor, but if we're looking to really, really maximise driver, we need to have that club travelling up through impact. Now I'm generally kind of 3-4 degrees up, so I'm going to really run through those 4 points and really try and exaggerate on this one to see if that sneaks me a little bit more distance. So it looks nice and straight. Get a little bit more club head speed. We can see my angle of attack there has actually jumped up. So I was 5 degrees up on that one. And that wasn't my longest shot so far, but still very, very good result. Now, the 5th and final tip. Something that the best players in the world do really, really well. Maybe club golfers don't do quite as well. And certainly something I don't think I'm always as good with, is we would like to hit the ball, ideally at the middle of the club face. Doesn't always give us the best performance for the ball, but the best speed should come from the middle of the club face. So, just as a quick one, I'm going to show you what the strike was like on my last tee shot, and then I'm going to leave the strike up on this, where I try and get it more out the middle. Now, I do appreciate most of you guys won't be practicing on TrackMan, but you can put spray on the face, which will leave an impact mark. You can get face tape to help you control that. But if you get some good feedback, it could be that you stood a bit near the ball, a bit too far from the ball, but just monitor strike, because it's such an important thing for distance, but also the shape of the shot can be massively affected with strike with driver. So we can see that last one I hit. Nice and centred on the face, but very, very low on the club face. Now that might have just helped me with a little bit more ball speed because there's less loft down there, but definitely will have made the ball spin too much. So for my final tip, strike. So I'm going to try and put all 5 things together now and try and get one right out the middle of the club face. And we're going to see, does that get me hitting my best drives? So tip 1 was set up. Everything feels good. Then we're going to make a big turn, fast on the way down. I know I'm going to hit up, which was tip 4, and then try and get it more out the middle of the club face. So you can see still a little bit low on the club face, but it was my quickest club head speed. There was some decent ball speed. Smash factors down a little bit because I could do with getting that strike a little bit nearer that cross, maybe even a little high toe. But all in all, down the right side of the fairway, 263 yards carry, 284 yards total. Right then guys, so 5 simple tips. So the first one is get that setup right. The setup with drive is very, very different because the ball's up in the air and the way we're looking to deliver the club is very different from when the ball's on the floor. So get that setup right as tip number 1. Then we're looking to make that nice big turn. That's going to help us generate some power. Ties nicely into tip 3, which is then swing the club quickly. If we want to hit driver further, we need to have some raw material of club head speed. And if you've got that club head speed, there's that possibility of hitting the ball further than before. Tip 4 is about getting the club traveling up through impact to really optimize what you can do with driver. And then that final tip, which might actually be the hardest one of all of them, is to hit the ball nice and centered on the club face. Now the beauty is, not all the modern drivers you need to hit right out the middle to get great performance, but the nearer the middle you can be, the more performance you'll get out the head and the truer reflection you'll get on the shape of shot. The toe strike can tend to hook a little bit more, the heel strike can tend to fade a bit more. So if you can hit it out the middle, you'll get a better feedback how you're delivering the club as well. So guys, hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, like it and share it, comment below and I'll get back to as many people as I can. If you have enjoyed today's content and you don't currently subscribe, please consider clicking the button below. Remember to ring that notification bell and then you'll find out whenever I drop a new video. Follow me on all my social media platforms, all under Ali Taylor Golf. Hopefully catch up with some of you guys down here soon. Stay in contact.